Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Always up for a good exploration.
Alright, well today we're going deep into a world that's both captivating and pretty complex.
Oh yeah.
It's the world of Iceberg Slim's autobiography, Pimp.
Oh wow, Pimp. That's a powerful one.
You guys shared this book with us, so we know you're not afraid of a little grit.
Right.
And believe me, Pimp delivers.
Yeah.
It pulls back the curtain on a hidden world, a world of survival, manipulation, and even glimmers of redemption. We'll unpack not just the book itself, but also the life of Iceberg Slim-born Robert Beck and the ripple effect Pimp has had, especially on hip-hop culture.
It's really interesting how Pimp has become more than just a story.
Yeah.
It's a cultural landmark, this piece of literature that sparks so many conversations and debates.
Right.
And it's inspired creative expression for decades.
Absolutely.
It's raw, it's unflinching, and it really holds a mirror up to some of the harshest realities of society.
Definitely. But before we jump into all of that, I think it's important to understand the man behind the words.
Yeah.
Iceberg Slim, Robert Beck, was born in 1918.
Okay.
Right in the heart of Chicago.
Wow.
Now imagine Chicago in the early 20th century, a city grappling with intense social and economic inequality.
Right.
Poverty and systemic racism were just woven into the fabric of everyday life.
You really can't separate Slim's story from the environment that shaped him.
Right.
Growing up in those conditions, witnessing that level of hardship firsthand, especially as a young black man in a system that, was designed to hold him back.
Yeah.
It inevitably impacted his worldview.
Absolutely.
Those early experiences really laid the groundwork for the path he would ultimately choose.
And by age 18, that path led him to the world of pimping.
Wow. 18.
Now, a lot of people might assume it was just about the money.
Sure.
But Pimp reveals a much more complex picture.
It's about control, right?
Yeah, Slim was grappling with this feeling of powerlessness that was instilled by the very systems we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And pimping, it became his way of asserting dominance, of taking control in a world that constantly tried to deny him agency.
Okay, so let's get into the book itself.
Okay.
Pimp does not shy away from anything.
Right.
It's written in this incredibly raw, visceral style.
Wow.
And Slim walks us through the gritty underbelly of that world, holding nothing back. He details everything from the strategies he used to recruit women to the constant threat of violence and the struggle for survival on the streets.
And what really struck me, is how meticulous he is in describing the psychological manipulation involved in what he called turning out women.
Right.
It wasn't just about physical control. It was about breaking down their self-worth, isolating them from any support system they had, even using these calculated acts of kindness to make them completely dependent on him.
It's funny you mentioned calculated acts of kindness.
Yeah, and this one particular passage comes to mind.
Oh, yeah.
Slim talks about buying a woman a beautiful dress, a dress she desperately wanted, couldn't afford.
Right.
It seems like a kind gesture on the surface, right?
Right.
But in the context of turning out, it becomes this chillingly manipulative tactic.
Oh.
Another way to tighten his grip on her.
It's that juxtaposition of the seemingly mundane with the deeply manipulative that makes Pimp so compelling.
Right.
It forces you to confront this uncomfortable reality.
Yeah.
That exploitation often wears a mask of normalcy.
Yeah, well,
even kindness.
It's disturbing, to say the least, but it offers this powerful, albeit unsettling insight into the darker aspects of human nature and the intricacies of power dynamics.
For sure.
It raises questions about the choices we make when we feel backed into a corner and the lengths we'll go to when we believe we have no other options.
That's exactly where the complexity of Pimp lies. Is Slim simply glorifying a lifestyle built on exploitation? Or is he, perhaps unintentionally, holding a mirror up to society?
Yeah.
Forcing us to confront these uncomfortable truths about power, desperation, and the systems that create them.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really makes you think. And that's part of what makes it so relevant. Even decades later, Slim doesn't just detail his exploits.
Right.
He reflects on them.
Yeah.
There's this thread of regret that runs through the whole narrative, and it kind of turns Pimp into a cautionary tale.
Exactly, and that's where the depth of the book really shines through. It would be easy to dismiss it as just glorifying the lifestyle.
Right.
But Slim's introspection like his grappling with the consequences of his choices.
Right.
It adds a whole other layer.
Yeah.
He's not just showcasing the allure of that world.
Right.
He's exposing the devastating reality of it.
Yeah.
The toll it takes on everyone involved.
And it's a reality that's like totally linked to the social and economic conditions of his time. Pimp is, in many ways, a powerful indictment of systemic inequality. It highlights how poverty and lack of opportunity, especially for black men in that era,
Right.
created this breeding ground for desperation, for a feeling of being trapped with no way out.
And what's so striking is that Slim doesn't shy away from implicating the system.
Right.
He points a finger at, the hypocrisy of societal structures that claim to condemn crime while simultaneously perpetuating the very conditions that breed it.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying, look, you created this monster, now deal with it.
Right. And that feeling of being trapped, of having these like limited options, it resonates far beyond Slim's own life, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
I mean, think about the influence Pimp has had on hip-hop culture. Artists like Ice-T, Jay-Z, they've all talked about how Slim's raw depiction of street life impacted their storytelling, their music.
It's amazing, and it's really interesting to see how different artists have engaged with Pimp. Some draw inspiration from that gritty realism, using it to explore themes of hustle and survival in these, marginalized communities. Others use Slim's narrative as a lens to critique the systems that perpetuate these cycles. Of poverty and exploitation, calling for social change, a dismantling of the structures that keep people trapped.
It's like Pimp has become this multi-layered cultural artifact. It's not just about glorifying a certain lifestyle. It's about understanding the complexities of that world, the motivations behind it, and the systemic issues that contribute to its existence.
If we connect this back to the bigger picture, Pimp becomes more than just a memoir, more than just a story. It's a social document, a cautionary tale, a springboard for these conversations about race, class, and the enduring consequences of inequality.
So what does all this mean for us? For the reader, the listener, for anyone grappling with the legacy of Pimp, what are we supposed to take away from this?
For me, one of the biggest takeaways is the importance of critical thinking. Pimp challenges us to look beyond the surface. To examine the motivations and the systems that create individuals like Iceberg Slim. It forces us to ask uncomfortable questions about our own roles in perpetuating or challenging those systems.
And it's not about condoning Slim's actions. It's about understanding the context, the circumstances that led him down that path. And maybe, just maybe, that understanding can help us address the root causes of these issues. To work towards a more just and equitable society.
It definitely stays with you. And even with all the darkness, all the unsettling stuff in Pimp, there's this thread of transformation that kind of runs through it all. Like Slim's whole journey, from Pimp to author, from exploiting others to using his words to shine a light on this harsh reality.
It really speaks to the human capacity for change.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that even within the darkest corners of human experience, there's potential for growth, for redemption. And Pimp, in his own way, becomes a testament to that.
I agree.
Slim's later years were dedicated to writing, sharing his story. And in doing so, he kind of offered this glimpse of hope. That maybe, just maybe, we're not always defined by our past.
It makes you wonder, had Slim been born into different circumstances, had he been given different opportunities, would his story have unfolded so differently? It's
a question worth thinking about, for sure. It circles back to that idea we talked about earlier, about systemic inequality and the way it shapes individual choices. It's not about excusing those harmful actions, but recognizing, I think, that complex interplay between social forces and personal agency.
And recognizing that those forces are still at play today. I mean, Pimp, despite being set in a different time, it still feels incredibly relevant. It speaks to those issues of poverty, exploitation, the struggle for power that we're still seeing.
Absolutely. That's why Pimp keeps generating conversation. Challenging those assumptions. Forcing us to confront those uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world we live in. It's not an easy read, but it's an important one.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into Pimp, I'm left with this question.
Yeah.
Does understanding the motivations and systems that create individuals like Iceberg Slim help us better address the problems that lead to exploitation and crime? What do you think?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I grapple with that myself.
Yeah.
I think understanding those root causes is really essential. It allows us to move beyond just judging and to see the humanity even in those who have committed terrible acts.
Yeah.
But understanding alone isn't enough.
Yeah. Right.
It needs to be paired with action. With this commitment to dismantling those systems, to creating a society that offers real opportunities for everyone.
Absolutely.
No matter their background or circumstances.
And maybe, just maybe, by confronting those uncomfortable truths, by engaging in these tough conversations, we can start to create a world where stories like Slim's become less about like inevitability and more about cautionary tales, reminders of a past that we're actively working to overcome.
There you have it.
Yeah.
Our deep dive into Iceberg Slim's Pimp.
A book that's as challenging as it is thought-provoking.
We hope this exploration has given you a new perspective on the story, the man, and the complex forces that shape our world.
So keep those wheels turning. Keep questioning and keep diving deep into the stories that, you know, make us think, make us uncomfortable, and ultimately help us understand the human experience a little bit better.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.